What is up, everybody? Welcome to This Week in College Football, presented by College Football Talk Daily at CFB Talk Daily. I am your host today, Sonny Martinez, along with John. What's up, John?
What's going on? How are you?
Good, good. We have an incredible guest today, a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. A man who, in my opinion, has the absolute greatest college football preview magazine on the market. This year, he's on his 32nd edition. You can find it in stores near you, and Phil will tell you a little bit about that. But we're with the great Phil Steele today. Phil, how you doing today?
I am doing great. I tell you what, without that second transfer portal window this year, made the magazine writing go a lot better. So, and I'm just in my summertime mode right now, just doing about 6 or 7 radio shows a day, maybe working 60, 65 hours a week. It's almost like being on vacation, Sonny.
65 hours a week is a vacation. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because during the season it's over 100 hours a week, and then magazine season basically 7 months of about 90 hours a week, and no deadlines. I'm on no deadlines right now, so I'm having fun.
That's awesome, and the magazine proves to be worth it year in and year out. Before we get started, where can we find your magazine?
Well, I appreciate that, Sonny. Now, save yourself some gas money. It's 376 pages. This thing's like a book, and you get 2 full pages on all 138 teams. We give you the same amount of coverage on Buffalo or Georgia State that we do on Alabama, Ohio State, 2 full pages. Now, it's only available at 2 places, Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. So if you're out and about driving around, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million are the only 2 locations, or you can go online to philsteele.com. And when you go to philsteele.com, I'm going to charge you a shipping charge, but we do give you the digital magazine, which is updated through September, absolutely free. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or philsteele.com.
And the digital magazine is totally worth it because you never know when you're going to want to dive in and read about a little college football, right?
Yeah, we also actually have a digital FCS magazine with 2 full pages on every FCS team. You can't find that information anywhere. In fact, it's tough to compile that amount of information, Sonny.
It's tough to find really any preseason coverage on FCS. So I know there's a lot of fans. I'll speak for them on this. Thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, it's something that we do because FCS teams play FBS teams over 100 times. So we need to know the power ratings, how good this FCS team. So we have actually broken down all the FCS teams for years. Finally put it into we used to do a couple of magazines in the FCS, but they never really sold on the marketplace. So that's why we do it digital only right now.
I don't want to get too far into FCS because I know, unfortunately, that's kind of a niche market, which I don't think is right because FCS football is absolutely phenomenal. But I would like to ask you this. With North Dakota State moving up to the FBS, they were so dominant for so long, and they were like just the team to beat. They were Alabama, but better in terms of FCS. Now that they're out of the FCS, is it a little more exciting to try to figure out who you are picking as your national champion? Or was it just, a chalk pick every year to go with North Dakota State?
Yeah. Well, recently, South Dakota State won a couple of titles. North Dakota State actually had 2 years they didn't win the title. And then last year, they got bounced out of the playoffs in round 1, a shocking upset by Illinois State, where they were a 23.5-point favorite. But, yeah, I'll be honest with you, a lot of years I would just be like, you know what, I'm just going to pick North Dakota State to win the title, and we'll see what else comes out. Now, this year, we're still working on who we're going to have in the top 25. We'll have that in the FCS magazine. Probably by the end of the week, we'll have our top 40 up there. But in North Dakota State, when they step up this year, I think they're competitive, highly competitive in the Mountain West Conference. But their problem this year is their schedule. There's 5 teams in the Mountain West that are at the top: Air Force, UNLV, New Mexico, and Hawaii, and North Dakota State. North Dakota State has to play each of the other 4 all on the road, and those are unique venues, having to travel to the islands and face Hawaii, UNLV and Raiders Stadium, Air Force in front of the Cadets in altitude, and New Mexico in altitude. So those are 4 really tough road trips. That's why I didn't pick them to win the Mountain West this year.
I think that North Dakota State game against Hawaii in particular might be one of the more intriguing group of 5 games we see all season. Hawaii is a team I'm very high on this year, and you mentioned them that they're going to be one of your favorites also. Where do you sit on the Warriors this year?
Yeah, Micah Alejado back at quarterback. Cam Barfield, I think, gives him a good run game. And the thing about Timmy Chang's teams is that they rank very high on my homegrown chart. Now, last year, my thought process was coming into the year, teams that recruit freshmen, retain their players, use the portal, but not as much as, bringing in 50, 60 new players every year. They're going to fare better. And guess what? Almost all the teams that were high on the homegrown chart finished with winning records and high on the charts. And vice versa, teams like West Virginia, which had a brand new roster, Oklahoma State, which had a brand new roster, and these teams that are recycling 50, 60 players every year, they'd finish at the bottom, and most of those teams had losing records. Well, Hawaii is one of the best teams in the homegrown factor. They're number 26 in the country, and that's rare for a group of 6 team. When I go over these rosters with the coaches, and this year I talked to 133 of the 138 coaches out there, the group of 6 coaches will say, wow, this guy's got this, he's going to do this. We won't have them next year. They know they're going to get bought by the Power 4. So the group of 6 almost has to have a reworked roster every year. But Hawaii still ranks pretty high at number 26. I think that's a big positive, and I think they are a legitimate contender in Mountain West. So I'm going to agree with you there, Sonny.
Yeah, and the homegrown factor is something that I wanted to mention as well, because this is new to this year's magazine. And like you said, it gives insight as to who recruits and keeps their players. I feel like a lot of people are going to look at a team like Indiana, who Kurt Cignetti brought a lot of guys over from James Madison. And now I feel like people are trying to find who's going to be the next Indiana. And you mentioned Oklahoma State this year is a team that a lot of people have absolutely just loaded up on. Potential playoff sleeper, which I think we're way early on that. Where do you see Oklahoma State going? And is there a team who their homegrown factor might not be as high as it is or should be, but do you think could be a dominant team as well?
Yeah, and when you look at Oklahoma State, I'm going to agree with you. I think they're improved, but I do not think they're a Big 12 title contender. But I do think it's going to be similar to what happened last year with Marshall and Southern Miss. As you recall, Marshall won the Sun Belt, and then there were more players on Southern Miss's team last year from Marshall because Charles Huff went there than there were left on the Marshall team, which is really something. And Southern Miss actually at one point was contending for the Sun Belt conference. They didn't finish there, but they were up there in the standings. Now with Oklahoma State this year, they're going to have the most improved offense in the entire country. Eric Morris brings over basically his entire North Texas offense with him. Drew Mestemaker, one of the top QBs. Caleb Hawkins, a running back. The receiving core is coming over. Tons of players coming over from North Texas. Now, they've got some tough games on the schedule. Games I think they'll be a dog, but they were 1-11 last year. I do think they get to a bowl game, but I would not list them as a Big 12 title contender this year.
From 1-11 to a bowl game is still a pretty big jump, and for Oklahoma State fans, that would be a huge sign of progress. So you obviously think that the style of offense that North Texas ran last year, that has essentially been brought, like you said, almost in its entirety to Oklahoma State, you think that's something that can translate well into the Big 12?
Yeah, North Texas last year averaged 45 points per game and 512 yards per game. Now, they're not going to match those stats this year. But remember, last year's Oklahoma State team averaged 14 points per game. So doubling last year's stats, easy. They should be in the 30s. They're not going to reach the 45-point level, but definitely more explosive offense. And they did it pretty good in the transfer portal. Now, the one question I would have would be going back to the homegrown factor chart. They're number 127. It is practically a brand new team. But the good thing is all those players from North Texas know Eric Morris, know the system, and that's going to be a big plus.
There's definitely something to be said for knowing the system and the talent factor that they'll be brought in. Let's stick in the Big 12 because I think it seems to be for pretty much everybody that it's Texas Tech, BYU, and then everyone else. Texas Tech had some issues in the offseason with their quarterback situation. BYU, I'm sure, is happy after retaining Kalani Sitake at head coach. I know there's a lot of people out there that are very high on Houston as well. I am just crazy high this year on Arizona. I think they could be a dark horse playoff contender. I love Noah Fafita at quarterback. I think they're going to be a huge offensive threat in the Big 12. What are your thoughts on Arizona? Do you think they can step up and compete with the likes of BYU and Texas Tech?
Yeah, they're definitely one of the top 5 teams in the Big 12 this year. And I do want to mention for your listeners out there about Texas Tech real quick. When I wrote the magazine, it went to the press June 5th. I was 90% sure there is no way they're going to let Brandon Sorsby play in college football. I listed him as a starter, but all my power ratings were adjusted for him not playing. I was stunned after the magazine went to the press that they were going to allow him to play, and now it's back to where I was in the magazine. So a lot of folks say, hey, does your picking Texas Tech first in the Big 12 differ? And my answer is no. Especially, did you look at their schedule? They're going to be at least a touchdown favorite in every single game this year. But with Arizona, love Fafita. I love the job Brett Brennan did. And Brett Brennan caught a lot of flack his first year. He took over a 10-3 team. This guy took over late. I mean, late, because of the coaching move, and it finished 4-8 the first year. But last year had the team set up. They did lose their top receiver, McMillan, but they didn't miss him at all. Fafita was outstanding. They've got the running backs with Riscano, Craig, and Roberts. I think the offensive line, if you look at them, they've got 4 all-conference caliber players there. They play good defense. Last year, they actually held opponents to 75 yards per game below their average, number 15 in the country. So, and they're number 29 on my experience chart this year. So this is a very talented Arizona team. They do have to play BYU on the road, West Virginia on the road. And if you're looking for a sleeper in the Big 12, a team that is picked at the bottom that could finish higher, probably be West Virginia. And they also play Texas Tech on the road, plus Kansas State on the road and Utah at home. But Arizona is going to be a big time threat.
I know John's ears perked up a little bit over there when you said West Virginia. What do you see in them that could make them a breakthrough?
Well, let me go back to my conversations with the coaches. Each coach, I would start the conversation this year. They'd say, Phil, how you doing? Expecting me to say, good. How about yourself? And I would say, Coach, I am doing fantastic. There is no second spring portal window this year. I don't have to readjust 138 team pages all in the month of May after trying to cram in 130 coaches' calls all in the month of May and get this magazine to the press June 5th. I'm in heaven. And you know what the coaches responded? They said, Phil, it was more of a team this spring. Why is that? Because we could coach the players harder. There was no portal after spring practice. We could coach them harder. We could list somebody third team. We knew the players we were taking into the spring would be the players we're taking into the fall, and everybody bonded this spring. I'd say that because last year, West Virginia had about the same amount of transfers that they do this year, but like 32 of them came in post-spring. In fact, last year, when I went over the roster with Rich Rod, he would be like, Phil, I could tell you what I think he is, but I haven't seen him. He hasn't been here yet. He comes in a month. I haven't seen him. How do you put a team together when you got 30 some odd players coming in after spring practice was over? Well, they didn't have that problem this year. And also last year, West Virginia probably fared better than I thought they would at 4-8 because they were down to their 5th string quarterback at one point, 5th string running back due to injuries. This year, they bring in Michael Hawkins to go with the Scotty Fox, who was thrown to the fire as a true freshman. They also have Max Brown back there. They add in a Cam Cook. One of the guys that that Rich Rod was really high on was their offensive line coach, Rick Trickett, coming in. And he brings some Jacksonville State offensive linemen with them. This is going to be a surprising West Virginia team because they get teams like Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas, and Houston all at home. It's a tough road trip going all the way up to West Virginia. Watch out for West Virginia this year. They could double last year's win total.
Yeah, talking about a team that I hope doubles their win total, but I don't think they will. And the transfer portal as well with Rutgers. So I'm a Rutgers fan. I want to get your opinion. You've covered Rutgers through a lot of different eras. Do you think this is the best foundation the program's had since they've joined the Big Ten?
Yeah, and I really like the job that Coach Schiano is doing with Rutgers. You look at a couple years ago, they had a really good schedule. Last year, they were a better team. They actually had an offense last year. They rolled up the last 2 years. They've been putting up good offensive numbers, but struggled at 5-7. I think injuries have been a major factor in that. This year, when you look at them, I think the offense will be good. I like Raymond coming back at running back and KJ Duff at receiver. I think that Lonergan or Cerise, whoever wins the job, I went with Lonergan, will have a good year. Defensively, should be decent, but they are taking on a pretty tough schedule. I mean, you get Indiana at home, Michigan at home, Nebraska at home. Those are three really good teams. USC at home. They'd probably be an underdog in those, meaning the winnable games, Maryland, Northwestern, Wisconsin, those are all on the road this year. Even the Boston College game, which is winnable on paper, that is 9-11, and it's going to be their red bandana game for Boston College. So they're going to be fired up on a Friday night, and we've seen them pull some big upsets in that game. So the schedule doesn't set up very well. But I'm a big Graciano fan. I think he recruits well. He just hasn't caught a lot of breaks the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been tough the last 2 years. The offense has been better. Sticking in the Big Ten, I want to talk about how do you think Pat Fitzgerald is going to do at Michigan State this season?
I think Pat Fitzgerald's going to do a great job at Michigan State. He's a hell of a coach, always got the most out of the players on hand when he was at Northwestern, and he's bringing a new attitude here. Now, bringing in another true portal or a transfer portal class on top of transfer portal class, third head coach, basically in a 3-year process, number 85 on my experience chart. That's not good, but they do return a quarterback. Milojevic is a talented QB that led some comebacks last year and then took control late in the year. They've got the running backs, bringing in a Cam Edwards from UConn, I think is a big-time pickup. Krishan McCray, wide receivers there. I wasn't wild by the fact that they lost their top wide receiver, Nick Marsh. To me, though, this is a redone roster, and it's going to be tough for them to make a big improvement in the first year of Pat Fitzgerald. But I think Pat Fitzgerald's going to get this program turned around. He's about discipline, structure, run game. I think he'll get it turned around quickly, but not this year.
I'm definitely excited to see how that Pat Fitzgerald era goes in Michigan State. He knows the Big Ten well, but another coach who left the Big Ten temporarily, came back, is another team who is sort of picked in the middle of the conference this year. Another team that I like probably more than I should, Illinois. You have Illinois projected to finish 9th in the conference. I know they're rebuilding both lines, which with under a Brett Bielema team, it's not something I worry about probably as much as I should. But I know Katon Hauser coming over from East Carolina is going to be a big addition. I feel like he actually might have a higher ceiling than Luke Altmaier. Their schedule gets a little bit easier with UAB, Southern Illinois, and a much weaker Duke team in non-conference. Am I crazy that I could see a 9-win season coming for Illinois?
Well, the key is Brett Bielema. He's a hell of a coach. And as you mentioned, Sonny, it's a very astute of you to point it out. When you have an offensive line question mark, and Brett Bielema is your head coach, you don't have that offensive line question mark anymore. Sort of like Miami this year. Miami at Florida, one returning starter on the O-line, but you know what? Mario Cristobal's the head coach. Their offensive line is going to be just fine. And here with Illinois, Henderson's back. Other than that, they've got a whole bunch of newcomers. Keep your eyes on Christian Martin at left tackle. Guy coming in from Colorado State. He really impressed Bielema. Could have himself a big year. And then they bring in Jake Renfro from Wisconsin at center. And I agree with you. I think Hauser may have a bigger upside than Luke Altmaier. They've got the running backs, Valentine and Lowry. In fact, they were 3 deep at running back. They went and moved Fegan all the way to tight end to improve that position. So they're talented. Now, they do have 52 newcomers. They go from number 3 on my experience chart down to number 79. They'll be an underdog at Ohio State, home against Oregon, probably at USC. They might be at UCLA, a 3-point dog. And then Iowa at home. They got a couple toss-up games on the schedule. I think the keys are going to be winning at Maryland, at Northwestern, and winning one of those, either the Iowa or the Oregon game, to get to that 9-win level this year.
Yeah, and I would think, at least on the surface, it's a lot more realistic to win at Iowa than Oregon. Again, sticking in the Big Ten, it seems like Indiana is flying under the radar, despite the fact that they're national champions. Losing a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback might do that to you, but everybody is so honed in and focused on Ohio State and Oregon. Indiana's going to have something to say about that, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. And, question mark at quarterback, right? Well, let me take you back to my first conversation with Coach Signetti. It was James Madison was in the FCS. They were moving up to the FBS, in my magazine for the first time. Talking to Coach, he loses his all-conference quarterback. He's got no experience. They're making the move from FCS to FBS. I'm like, Coach, what are we going to do? We might struggle a little bit here at quarterback. He's like, Phil, I have had a first-team all-conference quarterback. Every team I've been on will have one this year. And I'm like, Whoa, okay. And then you watch, and guess what? They had one that year. So I asked him this year, I said, Coach, where you at with Hoover? And he said he's in the same spot Mendoza was last year at this time. Only difference, he's a little bit shorter. Mendoza's 6'5", Hoover's probably more like 6'1", but he'll get that. The turnovers were the problem at TCU. I don't think the turnovers will be the problem here. He's got a better run game, better defense. And this is a loaded team. I like the addition of Nick Marsh to go along with Charlie Becker at receiver. I love the addition of Turbo Richard coming in from Boston College at running back. They're solid on the offense and defensive lines. I rate them both top 10. Defense is a top 10. Special teams top 10. And when I factor in the schedule this year, I have them favored in 11 games, and I have one toss-up game on the schedule, that being their home game against Ohio State. So, yes, I feel Indiana's got a great shot at winning the Big Ten again this year.
So not much of a drop-off for the Hoosiers, and I feel like a lot of people, because the Big 12 sometimes gets disrespected, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who don't realize how good of a quarterback Josh Hoover is.
Yeah, and just watch him at the start of last year. I think the knock on Hoover was the turnovers, but there were some games where they were behind, and he had to be throwing that football and taking some chances to get his team back in the game. And don't worry, Coach Signetti will coach him up, and he's got more. He's got a ton of talent, so I think it's going to be a perfect marriage there.
Absolutely. Let's move to the SEC and to a team who is never under the radar, the Alabama Crimson Tide. You have Alabama as your number one surprise team in the country this year, which after 10 years of dominance, it's really strange to consider Alabama a surprise team. What do you see in Alabama this year? And I know a lot of people, the jury still seems to be out on Kalen DeBoer to a degree. I know John likes him, thinks he's one of the best coaches in the conference, as do I, but the jury's kind of still out on him. Is Kalen DeBoer the deciding factor, and if Alabama is a success this year, or is it something else?
Yeah, and I picked up my number one surprise team because I figured they would not be in the preseason top 10, and guess what? They were picked 6th in the SEC in the media poll. So here's a team that's picked 6th in the media poll that I think not only will make the playoff this year, but battle for it. Now, why were they picked 6th in the media poll? Well, first of all, you watched the end of last year. They got blown out by Georgia, blown out by Indiana, couldn't run the ball, and they lose their quarterback. What's there to like about Alabama? Nothing. How about, first conversation I had with Kalen DeBoer here at Bama after he moved over from Washington. These are some damn big shoes. I mean, who steps into these shoes? You'd have to be perfect just to be said you're decent. But he stepped into those shoes. And, something about Kalen DeBoer, he is 14-6 against, 20-6 against ranked teams. So including here at Bama, he's done extremely well. He's got 2 quarterbacks that can play in Keelan Russell and Austin Mack. He's in his 3rd year. So now this is no longer Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer's roster. You a Saban guy, you a DeBoer guy. It's pretty much Kalen DeBoer's team. He's got good talent throughout, one of the best secondaries in the country. Defensive fronts loaded with talent. He's got Ryan Coleman-Williams back at receiver, who had an off year last year with 11 drops. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He'll play better. They will establish a run game. I like Daniel Hill, E.J. Kroll, Kevin Riley, and A.K. Deere. And then when you look at the schedule, I've got them favored at 9. I've got 3 toss-up games on the schedule. Georgia at home. And remember, they beat Georgia on the road last year, at Tennessee and at LSU. So is this a team that can make the playoff? Yes. Are they under the radar? Yes. And I think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best head coaches. So, John, you're correct in that assumption.
For me, it was weird. I said it earlier in the week that I feel like Alabama and him were an afterthought at SEC media days, which is so crazy to me because I have him as probably the 2nd or 3rd best coach in the conference.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you 100% there, John. And as you mentioned, nobody even talked about Alabama at media days, hardly.
Yeah, it was insane to me. So I have one last question before we let you go here, Phil. But I want you to give me one prediction that you have right now that people may laugh at, but in December will come true.
How about I'll go with the West Virginia to double their win total.
Wow, really high on West Virginia. I love it. I love West Virginia, so I'm excited to hear that.
Phil, I have a couple of questions here to close us out as well, and this is a little bit more postseason talk here. Arch Manning is your Heisman Trophy pick. Not an outrageous pick by any stretch, but you know as well as anybody, one of the reasons we love college football is because of the sheer absurdity that always seems to be happening. Who's a name that not a lot of people know right now, but we could see in New York at the end of the season for the Heisman Trophy ceremony?
How about a 20-1 pick, Sonny? I'm going to go with Gunnar Stockton of Georgia.
Okay.
And current odds are 20-1. Pound those. Gunnar Stockton is a heck of a quarterback on fourth down in the fourth quarter against ranked teams last year. How about a 16-2 ratio? He's got a solid offensive line in front of him, a solid run game. The receiving core is above average. It's not great, but it's above average. And here's a guy that plays his best when the pressure's on and against the best teams. And Georgia's got a great shot at winning the SEC. He's got a great shot at being 11-1 or 12-0 at the end of the year. And I think folks are going to be talking about Gunnar Stockton at the end of the year at 20-1 odds. Jump on that right now.
11-1 at Georgia is certainly enough to get you on the Heisman candidate list. And I'm assuming a college football playoff spot, and we'll get to that in a minute. But your group of 5 playoff prediction, you give Navy a slight edge over Boise State. What do you see in Navy that makes you go with them over the Broncos?
You know, when I talked to Coach Newberry, going over the squad with him, this guy was extremely confident in saying he felt that they were capable of something special. And then, you know, when I took in the talent and the schedule, I've got him an underdog against Notre Dame. But I don't have an underdog in any other game. At Air Force and at UTSA are the 2 toss-up games on their schedule, which you're capable of getting. And if Navy was to win the American Conference and go 11-1 with your only loss to Notre Dame, I think they'd have a tremendous shot at getting there. Normally, Navy is number 85 on my experience chart. This year, they're number 15. So it's one of the more experienced teams. And like I said, Coach Newberry just had a confidence to him that something special was going to happen this year.
I agree. Navy is going to be a threat in the American Conference. Are there any other kind of dark horse candidates within the group of 4 that you can see navigating their way up into possible contention?
Liberty, if everything breaks well, they only won 4 games last year, but they lost so many close games. They're plus 66 yards per game in league and conference play. They lost 3 straight back-to-back overtime games. Never seen that before. And they've got a talented squad. Didn't lose a lot to the transfer portal, unlike most of the other group of 6 teams. Their knock on them would be the schedule, but they open up. If they knock off James Madison in the opener, go 12-0, I think they would have a shot at getting there. And then the other one would be in the Mountain West. Watch Fresno. I was really impressed with Matt Entz last year at Fresno State. I like the talent he has. He's got the run game. He's got the defense. And they host Boise State on October the 10th. If they win that, they'd have a shot at winning the Mountain West and being that team that comes, not the Mountain West, the Pac-12, that comes out of the Pac-12 as the champ. So keep your eyes on Fresno as a sneaky team.
Fresno's not a team that I had thought of being a candidate like that, but I do agree with you. All right, and we'll wrap you up here with one question. The last that everybody wants to know. When we look back at the end of the season, we're sitting there late January. What national championship game are we watching this year?
You know, I talked about Gunnar Stockton. I think Georgia has a really good shot of getting to the national title game this year. And then the other team I want to talk about would be Notre Dame. And when I look at Notre Dame this year, they've got everything that I like about a squad. Notre Dame has my number 1 rated defense in the country. Last year, they held opponents to 95 yards per game below their season average. They've got 9 starters back on D. My number 5 rated defensive line, number 1 linebackers, and number 1 DBs. You look at the offense, they have my number 1 rated offensive line. I'm on the Joe Moore Award Committee, one of the 21 award committees I'm on. I value offensive line play. They have my number 1 offensive line. They've got a Heisman favorite in C.J. Carr, a quarterback. They got his feet wet as a freshman last year, now has experience, and they play the number 66 schedule. Their 2 toughest games are at BYU and home against Miami of Florida. They'll be favored in both. I've got them winning all 12 games, and the schedule's light enough where maybe they stay healthy during the year, play a lot of backups during the season, which will make them better prepared for the long run in the playoffs.
So when it comes down to it, Notre Dame and Georgia, who's your pick?
I'm going to go with the Irish. I've got them number 1 this year, but wouldn't surprise me if Georgia got there. The thing with Georgia, they got to get over that damn bye week. You know, teams off the bye week that has been sitting out an entire month versus a team that just played last week, Those teams are 1-7. Only Coach Signetti has gotten over the bye week. Kirby Smart's 0-2 in the bye week. So he's going to have to figure something out to get over that bye week this year, most likely.
Yeah, that's a factor that has certainly kind of reared its head on a lot of teams. A lot of really talented teams have had to deal with that. We saw that last year. Kurt Signetti, like you said, overcoming it. That was a big step. Phil, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. Once again, where do we get your magazines and how do we follow you on social media?
Well, I appreciate that, guys. Once again, the magazine's 376 pages. You get 2 full pages on all 138 FBS teams. Same amount of coverage on a team like Buffalo or Louisiana that you get on Alabama and Ohio State, 2 full pages. It's only available at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. Barnes & Noble actually gives you a choice of 2 covers in their stores. Love Barnes & Noble. Or you can go online to philsteele.com. At philsteele.com, we're going to charge you a shipping charge when you order the magazine, but we give you the digital magazine absolutely free. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, philsteele.com. And follow me on Twitter. It's at philsteele042. That's at philsteele042.
If you're a real college football fan and you don't follow Phil Steele on Twitter, you are not a real college football fan. Phil, again, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to doing this again in the future.
Hey, sounds good. It was a lot of fun talking football with you guys today. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.